The way I found out I had breast cancer was that I felt a lump in my right breast. And I went to doctors, I had a mammogram, and everyone told me there was nothing there. I was a healthy young woman and there was nothing to worry about. And I walked around with it for 6 months. It kept growing. And finally, I got myself to a breast surgeon and I found out that I had an aggressive breast cancer. I was married with a 4-year-old daughter, just turned 35 years old. I didn't know anyone with breast cancer. There's no one in my family with breast cancer. I was so angry that I had walked around with this. And I'm a reporter. I had to tell my story publicly. I had to tell other women, you could be a young woman and get breast cancer, and you didn't have to have breast cancer in your family. That's what happened to me. A lot of people told me not to go public because at that time, 1991, there weren't a lot of women going public and saying they had breast cancer. So I spoke on national shows, lobbied in Washington, marched. And again, you have to remember, this is before really pink ribbons and all the big breast cancer events. It just didn't exist. So we had to start it.
That is so amazing. You know, I don't feel like I've had a chance to give back yet, but I kind of paid it forward. I had joined the board of Living Beyond Breast Cancer about 10 years ago and was on the board for 8 years. And last summer in July, I found a lump, and I had lumps over the past 30 years that have always been benign. And so when the results came back that it was cancer, I was totally shocked. I just hadn't anticipated anything like that. I was working full-time. I was hoping to be able to change careers a few years later, and the floor fell out from under me, and I thought, oh no, my life is going to change permanently, and I never had the chance to take advantage of some of the things I wanted to do.
It was 5 years ago, 2009. I was at work. I got a call from my medical oncologist, and she told me I had breast cancer. It was the night before my daughter's high school graduation, and I was shocked. I had had BRCA testing, and my mother and my aunt were survivors and carried the gene, so I thought I would eventually maybe get breast cancer, but they had been in their 60s, and I was 46, and I was flabbergasted. It's important to have genetic testing if there's cancer in your family so that you can have appropriate surveillance, because if I had not had this MRI, I wouldn't have been able to catch it as early as I did.
It's so stunning when you get that news, and I can relate. I come from a different angle where no one in my family had breast cancer, and I'm the youngest of 5 girls, and I was, at the time, 37, had just had my youngest son and was breastfeeding. And the furthest thing from my mind was, wow, this lump is going to lead to a stage 4 breast cancer diagnosis with 3 kids under the age of 7. It was more than I ever thought would happen in my worst moments, sitting in the dark, snuggling with my little baby. At my initial diagnosis time, my mother came in, and I have 4 sisters. They all had been with me. I was surrounded by my husband, Andy's family. It was so wonderful to have that huge family embrace. I felt so fortunate in my misfortune.
My husband's great, extremely supportive, and speaking publicly and telling my story, I felt like the city of Philadelphia embraced me and my family, and that was incredible.
Friends just came out of the woodwork. My family was with me every step of the way. I have this wonderful network of friends. We call ourselves the WOWs, Way Out Women. There was always somebody with me through every treatment.
I was fortunate to have support from family, friends, my synagogue, my workplace, but it all started with my husband, Jeff. We've known each other since we were in our teens in high school, and he's been there for me every step of the way. Always made me feel like I was beautiful, you know, hair, no hair, whatever I was going through, he was my rock.
Why are you involved? Why do you help?
It is a part of my life that brings me so much joy. This is something where I know I can contribute, and it matters.
In addition to being on the board, I joined the helpline last year, and when I talk to women who say, you're the first person that I've talked to who has been through this, or People at my church, they just don't understand. They're afraid they're going to catch cancer from me. It shows you how much work we have to do and how many people out there are in need of our services.
I love working with LBBC and talking to other survivors and being involved in yoga on the steps, which I think is the most inspirational event that I've ever been a part of.
I think the first real step that I took to give back was to start the Louise S. Moran Book Fund, named after my mom, at Fox Chase Cancer Center about 5 years ago. And the book fund aims to provide families who have young children who are dealing with breast cancer with really good children's books about cancer so that they can read to their children, so that they can start that conversation. We also have those books now available at Living Beyond Breast Cancer.
None of us knows how much time we have, and every single day is important. Knowing that there is some place to go, some place to call, other women to talk to, that is critical to not just living beyond breast cancer, but living your best life. And that's what we all want.
I have been overwhelmed by the continuous outpouring of affection. I had to get used to allowing people to do things for me. As an introvert, it was very hard, but I had to allow myself to be in the center of people's attention. When I finished my treatment about 2 months ago, it's still happening. People are still reaching out to me.
I think when you go through something that's difficult, there's an urgency to make sense of it, to make meaning from it. I remember days where I would walk around and I would look fine on the outside, but I was not feeling fine on the inside. And it made me realize that there are a lot of people going through life who are struggling with things that aren't apparent on the outside. So I believe having cancer has made me a more sensitive person. We all need to show kindness to each other because we're all struggling with challenges.
It's been 8 years since I was diagnosed. And certainly in that time, there have been some high highs and some low lows. Since I was diagnosed metastatic, I am going to be in treatment for the rest of my life. But I really feel that I have come to terms with living with my diagnosis. There was a time when I would never go through a day and not remember that I have breast cancer. But in fact, I do get through most days forgetting. And those are wonderful days.